Joining us now, Rinkwide Vancouver's Jeff Paterson, who will have a special preview show dropping here with former Canuck president and captain Trevor Linden as we get to the business of the second round series against Edmonton and look back on the series victory over Nashville. How you doing, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm excited. On to round two.
Have you been able to avoid any Oilers fans over the weekend? Have they been coming at you already as the taunting, the tribalism started in your corner?
I've seen it. I haven't been on the receiving end yet. But yeah, I mean, look, that's part of this whole thing. And I asked Quinn Hughes on Sunday if, as an American who has spent lots of time on this side of the border, obviously in his childhood and again here with the Canucks, but did he fully grasp the cultural significance of two Canadian teams, the last two Canadian teams and their fan bases going head to head here in the playoffs? And he said, probably not, but hope that he would by the end of the series here. And, you know, if it's a lengthy series, and let's hope that it is, just to boost the drama, then yes, I think everybody will have a better sense of what it means to have two teams, particularly two Western teams. We've seen the Battle of Alberta recently, but boy, it's been a long time. I had forgotten how long it had been since the Canucks and the Oilers had met in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, 1992, 32 years ago, only twice in history, despite playing in the same division.
Doesn't make sense.
So bizarre. Well, they were up, Canucks were down, Canucks were up, they were down.
But the Flames, they've crossed paths with the Flames so much. It's just crazy.
So Jeff, just macro, 30,000 foot view here. What do you think is going to be important in this series?
Discipline for the Canucks. It really goes without saying when you see what the Oilers did to the Kings, who were the second best penalty killing team in the National Hockey League over the regular season. And it was basically a coin toss whether the Oilers were going to score when they got the power play. So, it's one of the things that still sticks with me a few days after the fact is the power play discrepancy in that Canuck Nashville series that was so razor thin in so many ways. And yet the power plays were 22-13 for the Predators, including 7-2 over the final couple of games. Like that just didn't seem right. It didn't seem right in the moment. It doesn't seem right a few days after the fact. Canucks won. So ultimately, give their penalty killing a ton of credit. But as good as their penalty kill was against the Predators, it's going to have to be lights out better against an Oiler power play that just scores at will. So I would say the best way to kill penalties and prevent the Oiler power play from doing the damage is stay out of the penalty box. That's probably asking too much, but that absolutely at the top of my list in block, capital letters, underline, bold, whatever, is discipline. And then on those occasions when you do have to kill, find a way. Just gut it out. They did that against the Predators. And the other thing, too, to mention, guys, is that the Predators had the second best power play in the NHL from the All-Star break on. So when we give praise to the Canucks power play, it wasn't like they were facing a bunch of jumps here. The Predators hit the playoffs on a bit of a run, obviously, and with a power play that had found its way through the second half of the season. And so I wrote a piece at Canucks Army that, for me, the Canucks penalty kill was the unsung hero of that opening round. And how about Ian Cole at 35, leading the Canucks by 6 minutes in shorthanded ice time, and at the conclusion of Friday's game, led all NHLers in shorthanded ice time in the first round. I think Brandon Carlo of the Bruins, he had to play 7 games, obviously, in that opening round against Toronto. But Ian Cole, the veteran, this is why they went out and got him. I know he kind of faded a little down the stretch, but boy, breathed some new life into his game, especially on the penalty kill against the Predators.
What do you think this series looks like aesthetically? Is it ultimately a playoff series that's going to be grindy like the Predators? Does it open up a little bit more? Do we see more goals like we saw a little bit in the LA series with the Oilers, and more so in Winnipeg, Colorado?
I think the Oilers hope that they can open it up a little bit, and obviously any shift with McDavid, you're probably going to stretch defenses, and that'll be the challenge to try to slow him down. Do I think the Canucks can beat the Oilers with 13 goals? Probably not. So they are going to have to find a way to generate a little bit more. Their power play would help. And again, they didn't get many opportunities, but they had 13 and scored on 2 of them, but only in the one game. In that same game, game 3 in Nashville, those were the 2 Canuck power play goals. So I'm curious to see. It's been a while, obviously, between games here. So it's been a long time since the Canucks have had a power play. Is there a little rust built up there? Can they get the power play in a groove when they get their opportunities? Do they want to trade chances with the Oilers? Probably not. But I think in saying that, if you can hold down McDavid and Draisaitl, you're not going to keep them off the scoreboard entirely. We know that sort of the underbelly of the Oilers, there are some questions about their depth there, and you saw it in the regular season. You saw it that final game that the two teams met. I don't put a ton of stock in the 4-0 regular season record because 3 of the games were so early, but that final game, and I know it without McDavid, But still, like, those were the Oilers. They had an opportunity, and guys like Pia Suter and Elias Lindholm stepped up for the Canucks. The Oilers' depth guys didn't necessarily step up. And so, again, do what you can to slow down McDavid and Draisaitl in the power play and hope that you force some of the others on that Oilers team to try to beat you. And I think that's one path to success for the Vancouver Canucks. In saying that, though, the Canucks need some of their spread scoring as well. Only 6 guys scored in that opening round against the Predators. So same cast of characters, same storylines that we talked about late in the Nashville series. That starts with Elias Pettersson, but there are some others, obviously, that have to step up offensively for the Vancouver Canucks.
So not putting a lot of stock in head-to-head, Jeff. Why not?
Just because the 3 games in the first 9 games of the regular season, it cost the Oilers a coach, obviously. I think McDavid wasn't at 100%. I think he was playing through something. For the Canucks, you can try to take some things out of it. If you're the Oilers, I think you sweep it under the rug that they're a different team. They play different stylistically under Chris Knobloch. They've been better, obviously, and they're in a groove with their power play right now. So the power play never really got on track against the Vancouver Canucks. Credit to the Canucks penalty killers. But the fact that 3 of those games were early to, right off the hop, the home openers for both teams, credit to the Canucks for doing what they had to do to get those wins. And hey, would the Canucks sign up for Brock Besser scoring 4 on opening night of this series like he did on the opening night of the season? Of course they would. That's probably not going to happen, though. I don't put a ton of stock in it. If it allows the Canucks to, feel a little bit better about themselves starting at home where they did beat the Oilers both times, then take what you can from it if you are the Vancouver Canucks. But ultimately, I just think, we've moved so far down the line here, and that the Oilers are rolling with their best players, leading the way, and some others following in suit. And we'll see how it goes from here.
We know that Demko is not going to play game 1, and who knows about whether he's going to play in the series. Is there a danger here in the Canucks waiting on Demko to come back and save the day, Jeff? Should they just have as their mindset Artur Shilovs as our goaltender for the series?
Yeah, I think so. And I hope that is the way they approach it. And look, Artie's given them every reason to believe. I know it's only been 3 games here in the playoffs, but get thrown into the fire, the surprise start in game 4 that goes to overtime. And even though he didn't face a shot in overtime, still, grinding late into the game where he knew he couldn't give up another one and he didn't. And then to pitch a shutout in an elimination game for a young guy getting these experiences. He still talks about drawing on what he did at the World Championship, and that was less than a calendar year as the Worlds get set to get started again. So, it's a ways back, but it's not. We're not going back years and years in the memory bank. He's got some experiences to draw on. Rick Tocchet talked about it again on Sunday. The teammates, JT Miller was asked if he has learned anything about Silovs here since he's been up and around the team. And he said, no, not really. I don't really talk to him, and he doesn't really talk to me other than the fun that they had with the pink shirt ahead of game 6. But they're kind of leaving him be. Silovs himself said that really hasn't had a ton of interaction with Demko or Casey DeSmith that goaltenders know not to really bother a guy when he's in a bit of a groove here. So everybody's kind of leaving him on an island. But he said, hey, I'm ready for the challenge here. He took that approach into Nashville. He's going to take that approach here against the Edmonton Oilers. And I don't think there's much doubt that he is now the starting goaltender for the Vancouver Canucks. So look, if Thatcher Demko can get to a point where he's an option, that's great. But again, he's going to have been off for a while, and how quickly can he get up to playoff game speed? And even then, if he gets back, I think we all learned the last time that he came back and he wasn't available for long, and how much trust and faith ultimately to have in his knee and his body to withstand the rigors of playoff hockey. So I think the Canucks have a ton of faith in Artur Silovs, and he has responded to this point, obviously stepping up a weight class now against McDavid, Draisaitl, and the Edmonton Oilers. But this guy's as cool as they come, and so looking forward to seeing what he can do here in round number 2.
Miller's going to be expected to be the thorn in McDavid's side to start. I like that they've got a safety net. I think I could see Elias Lindholm as the backup plan for that if Miller doesn't have any success. But I love the fact that Miller's annoying and might get a little bit chirpy with McDavid, which might help get him off his game. What do you make of that individual one-on-one matchup, which obviously will be exploited more in games 1 and 2 than maybe on the road? But what do you think Miller's success rate will be like?
Well, he had success in the regular season. That was one of the reasons that the Vancouver Canucks prevailed in all of those games, certainly the 3 early ones when McDavid played. Look, JT loves a challenge. We know that about him. He can get fiery. The guy, I think, as much as you can sort of frustrate McDavid and you can see it in his body language, Draisaitl's the guy that gets frustrated and takes some undisciplined penalties. And I do wonder, how do you try to counter Leon Draisaitl? I mean, he's such a unique player with his size and his skill, but he is a guy that has shown not afraid to use the stick as a bit of a weapon, but sometimes crosses the line. And we'll see if the referees are keeping close tabs on the way things unfold here. So the challenges are big for the Vancouver Canucks. Knoblauch's going to have the option of, separating those two guys. At times he can load up and throw sort of the ultimate nuclear weapon out there. The Canucks have to be prepared. But I think the one thing that we saw from the Nashville series, and against those were the Predators, these are the Oilers, but the way the Canucks defended, they gave up 12 goals in 6 games. So yes, JT will be tasked with the forward matchup, but I do think that containing and ultimately trying to control McDavid and Draisaitl is going to be a team effort by the Vancouver Canucks, and the way their defense are playing. They're just not giving up much to shut out the Preds in the final game. They gave up 2 in game number 5, and one of those was the greasy power play goal, so only 1 5-on-5 goal against in the last couple of games for the Vancouver Canucks. And whether it's Zadorov, whether it's Soucy, whether it's Tyler Myers, those big bodies, they're going to be asked to combat Leon Draisaitl head-to-head, and we'll see how they fare. Rick Tocchet with a ton of praise. He thought that his defense core, the veteran savvy, and just the size, he thought really kind of was the X factor in that series against the Nashville Predators, and it's hard to argue. Those guys stepped up. Zadorov and Lindholm both have the sort of experience of the Battle of Alberta, even though they were on the wrong side. When the Oilers and Flames met a couple of years ago, maybe you use that as added motivation. But I just have a feeling that Nikita Zadorov is going to be in the middle of just about everything that goes on in this series between the Canucks and the Oilers.
If you had to pick one of the secondary scorers who, and of course, as a lot, they were pretty quiet in round 1, Jeff, but if you had to pick one of the secondary scorers up front to be better and make an impact on this, who would you feel best about coming in?
Oh, I want Elias Pettersson, obviously, to find his game. It's hard to call him a secondary scorer, but the way that it's gone here with 1 goal in his last 19 games, that's exactly what he is. But outside of game 1 and really the third period of game 1, I was a little small d disappointed in Dakota Joshua, I thought, in that opening round. I just thought a guy at his size who can control the walls and win his battles and can be such a factor for the Vancouver Canucks. And really wasn't. Now, he and his line with Lindholm and Garland saw a lot of Ryan O'Reilly and Philip Forsberg and spent a fair bit of time defending. But I just think we know that there's more to give for Dakota Joshua. And I think now that he's got 6 games of playoff experience, I look for him to sort of internalize a little bit and recognize that he can be more of a factor and more of a force for the Vancouver Canucks. So, that's one of the guys certainly that I'm looking at. You know what you're going to get, an honest effort from Connor Garland, and he'll be scooting around out there and hopefully getting under the skin of the Edmonton Oilers. Nils Höglander, there's a ton of room for improvement in his production at the very least, although I thought he got better as the series went on against Nashville. But I look at Pettersson just because and look, he made a nice play. Like, credit where it's due. He did make a nice play to get the puck to Besser on the game winner in game number 6. But the fact that we can sort of point to one play over 6 games and, it stands out because there just wasn't a whole lot to his body of work. He's got to be better. He knows it. The team knows it. I'm sure the Oilers know it. So I look at Pettersson, I look at Dakota Joshua as 2 guys that I think have room to elevate their games here in round number 2.
The 4 days off allows for a mental reset too, doesn't it? Obviously the physical reset is great for guys like Hughes that might have been battling a little something, anybody else for that matter. But I also like what you just talked about with Joshua and others, that they all get to sort of take a deep breath and be like, okay, we've got playoff experience now. That's what that looks like. And now they get to sort of relaunch themselves now as grizzled vets of 6 games at the very least.
Yeah, and I think, look, even the guys that have been through 50 games of playoff experience would tell you that every game there's a little bit of a learning somewhere along the line. But for the guys that only had the bubble experience or had no playoff experience whatsoever, they had a brief overtime game. They had a scoreless game where neither side could blink right down to the wire. They had a game that was scoreless into the third period in game 5. Those are all sort of elements to rabid fan bases, and that will continue in round number 2. So, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of surprises in that regard. Now it's just a question of how quickly can guys get to their game, and the ones that weren't on the top of their game necessarily in round number 1, they can't wade into this second round series. It just can't happen. But look, the Canucks had some travel troubles getting out of Nashville on Saturday. Apparently weather kept their plane on the runway for a bunch of hours. So really Saturday was an all-day excursion just to get back to town. Not that they would have skated or practiced the day after eliminating the Predators, but Sunday, I think they opted, a few guys went on the ice, but for the most part, it was just a dry land workout day. And now, they had to wait to find out when they were going to play. Now they know, so they're going to have a couple of practice days. And that should be enough. I mean, it gives the coaches ample time to review whatever game tape they need of the Oilers and the Kings in their first round or whatever they want to look at with the Edmonton Oilers. So, I mean, both teams should be well rested and well prepared. And let's hope that adds up to a well-played series.
Jeff, great stuff. Last question. We haven't asked in the poll.
No.
Who's the underdog in this series and why?
A lot of Sunday was spent trying to figure that out. I think based on recent form, you have to look at what McDavid and Draisaitl did in the first round against the Los Angeles Kings and that power play that is just so red hot right now. The way the Oilers played over the second half of the season, the Canucks offensive struggles. I get that the Canucks swept the Oilers and that they won the Pacific Division, but I still think based on recent form and the play of the top end guys, you give the nod to the Edmonton Oilers. So, was I surprised that the majority of the ESPN pundits were picking the Oil? No. Was I surprised at 23 of 24? Yeah, a little bit. I mean, give the Canucks a fighting chance here. The way that they defend, the way that Rick Tocchet has them buying in. It was funny. JT was like, I don't see us as the underdogs. Rick Tocchet was, no, eat it up, embrace this. Like, people have been writing us off all season long. Bring it on, serve it up. So, a couple of ways to consume that information if you're the Vancouver Canucks. But I'm sure that ESPN pundits poll will make its way into that Canucks locker room without a doubt if they need additional fuel, whatever the case. This is playoff hockey. It's the second round. You shouldn't need those outside motivations, but hey, if they help in any way whatsoever. But I mean, I do think that, look, the Oilers have gone through the playoff pain the last couple of seasons. They were built, they've added, they went big at the trade deadline again, trying to address some of their needs. It looks like their goaltending has come a ways. I'm still not sure that I'm sold on Stuart Skinner to get them to the Stanley Cup, but he's played better than he has in recent years. So, this is a team that's gone through the pain of playoff losses. They were built to win the Cup this year. The Canucks obviously now sort of working on house money. So I think the Oilers are the favorites here, but, I think the way the Canucks are playing, the way the Canucks are defending, I think they give the Oilers a pretty good fight.
So you'd say this is a successful season already for the Canucks. Is that fair, Jeff?
I do think expectations have to change over the course of the year. I was a guy that had them on the bubble to make the playoffs, but when you put up 50 wins and 109 points, I do think it's fair to move the goalposts a little bit. And when you win a division and you start on home ice against a wild card team, that hasn't always been a recipe for success for the Canucks in past playoffs. But I think for this group to get that playoff experience, to get that feeling of securing a round at the very least, kind of as the season unfolded, I thought, win a round, take your chances beyond the first round. But had they lost in the first round, all that regular season stuff wouldn't have been a thing. But I think you can qualify this now as a successful season, but by no means should anybody be resting on their laurels or parking it. No, you've got an opportunity here. You're playing with the big boys. You're one of 8 remaining teams in the Stanley Cup chase. So, step into the ring and take this challenge head on.
Marvelous stuff, Jeff. Thank you for the time, and we'll catch up later in the week.
All right, guys. Sounds fun.
Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.